Welcome to America News.
The full White House statement: Secretary of Health and Human Services Thomas Price offered his resignation earlier today and the president accepted. The president intends to designate Don J. Wright of Virginia to serve as acting secretary, effective at 11:59 p.m. on September 29, 2017. Mr. Wright currently serves as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health and Director of the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. From Price's resignation letter: I have spent 40 years both as a doctor and public servant putting people first. I regret that the recent events have created a distraction from these important objectives. Success on these issues is more important than any one person. In order for you to move forward without further disruption, I am officially tendering my resignation as the Secretary of Health and Human Services effective 11:59 p.m. on Friday, September 29, 2017. How it happened: Price's stock with President Trump fell significantly after Republicans' repeal and replace legislation died in the Senate. Price, a former six-term congressman, got the HHS job in part because of his ties to Capitol Hill, where Trump had hoped he would be the administration's point man on an ACA overhaul. Price's travel on private jets, at taxpayers' expense, only made his job more tenuous. Politico identified 26 times Price chartered private flights for official business, for a total cost of more than $400,000. Those flights often covered short routes for which commercial flights were readily available, and Price sometimes tacked personal business onto his official travel. Price's offer to pay back a small portion of those flights, "my seat," as he put it, didn't help extinguish the controversy, and was followed by revelations that he also used military jets for travel to Europe, bringing his total airfare tab to more than $1 million. Trump is notoriously unhappy with bad press, and Price got a lot of it. He even opened the floodgates to a broader investigation into Trump cabinet appointees' use of private airfare and other eyebrow-raising spending. Lasting legacy: Price might not have gotten ACA repeal over the finish line, but even in his short tenure, he was able to undermine the law significantly. Under his leadership, HHS waged a PR campaign against the ACA, slashed funding to help promote enrollment, and directed regional department officials not to assist state-based enrollment efforts. There's a good chance those efforts will successfully tamp down enrollment, and lower enrollment, especially among the healthier people who are less likely to investigate health insurance on their own, can legitimately weaken the ACA. Watch how to help the flights: $500,000 in military flights to Africa, Asia and Europe which were approved by the White House, and more than $400,000 in charter flights. Total cost: his travel has exceeded $1 million, Politico reports, when accounting for both his overseas trips and the more than 24 domestic trips he's taken on private planes since May. Price's reimbursement: Price said Thursday that he will reimburse the government for the cost of his own seat on his domestic trips via private jet, reportedly around $52,000, but that would not include the cost of the military flights. Where things stand: Price resigned on Friday. The flights: a June 7 military flight to Ohio, then New York, $36,068, a July 27 charter flight from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Guymon, Oklahoma, $14,434, an August 4 charter flight from Denver, Colorado, to Durango, Colorado, a $5,719, an August 9 flight on the North Dakota Governor's plane, $2,144. Total cost: Pruitt took non-commercial flights costing taxpayers more than $58,000, according to CBS News. The EPA's defense: when the administrator travels, he takes commercial flights, EPA spokeswoman Liz Bowman told The Washington Post Wednesday, adding that the one charter flight and 3 government flights were due to particular circumstances. Where things stand: last month, the EPA's Inspector General announced it was launching a preliminary probe into Pruitt's travels to Oklahoma. The flights: Newton requested a government jet earlier this year for his honeymoon, according to ABC News. He and his wife also used a government jet when traveling to Louisville and Fort Knox, Kentucky, which coincided with the eclipse. Total cost: an Air Force spokesman told ABC News that a government jet typically costs roughly $25,000 per hour to operate. Newton's defense: Newton told Politico's Ben White that the honeymoon story was misreported and the use of such a plane would only be for national security purposes. He also denied that his Kentucky trip had anything to do with watching the eclipse. Where things stand, Mnuchin later withdrew the plane request for his honeymoon. Meanwhile, the Treasury Department's Inspector General is reviewing his Kentucky trip. The flight's Zinke and his aides have reportedly taken several flights on private and military aircraft, including a $12,000 charter flight, which belongs to Nielsen Associates, a Wyoming-based oil and gas exploration firm, from Las Vegas to his hometown in Montana, and private flights between St. Croix and St. Thomas in U.S. Virgin Islands, per the Washington Post. Total cost unclear, as the total number of charter and military flights is unknown. The Interior's Interior Department spokeswoman, Heather Swift, said those trips were booked only after officials failed to find commercial flights that would accommodate Zinke's schedule. She added that they all were pre-cleared by career officials in the ethics office for Politico. Zinke's defense: all this travel was done only after it was determined by multiple career officials at the department that no commercial options existed to meet the promulgated schedule, Zinke said. The flights were only booked after extensive due diligence by the career professionals in the department's General Law and Ethics Division. Where things stand, the Interior Department said in a statement to the Huffington Post Friday that Zinke's travel was completely compliant with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. The flight's luxury purchases: although Shulkin flew commercial to Europe for meetings with Danish and British officials about veterans' health issues in July, he did use government funds to fly his wife out, stating that she was traveling on approved invitational orders, per the Washington Post. The government also provided a stipend for her meals. They also attended a Wimbledon Championship tennis match, toured Westminster Abbey, and took a cruise on the Thames. The vast defense: all of Shulkin's activities on the trip, including Wimbledon visit, were reviewed and approved by Ethics Council, VA Press Secretary Kurt Kaschauer said in a statement. Where things stand: in response to questions from the Post, the VA announced Friday that they'll start posting details of the Shulkin's travel online, and disclose any use of government or private aircraft. This information was never previously public. Just before heading to New Jersey for the weekend, Trump stopped and told reporters on the South Lawn of the White House that he'll make a decision about Health and Human Service Secretary Tom Price's future in the administration tonight, per a pool report. Trump called him a very good man. This comes after reports that Price has spent more than $1 million on charter and military flights funded by taxpayers' dollars, and announced he will repay those costs. Hu Bravo is the co-founder of Thoma Bravo, a tech-focused private equity firm with more than $17 billion in assets under management. He was born in the Puerto Rico city of Mayagüez, where his parents still live. He was unable to reach them for several days after the storm hit. How Bravo is committing up to $10 million, including an initial $2 million outlay, to a new foundation he formed called Podemos Puerto Rico, which will sponsor relief and recovery efforts, both now and in the future. Statement from Bravo: our foundation's gifting efforts are focused on providing direct and targeted relief to communities in Puerto Rico that have been difficult to reach and lag in aid. Through efficient use of capital, our supply chain expertise, and our knowledge of local communities in Puerto Rico where my family grew up, we believe we can make a big impact. There will hopefully be significant federal aid coming to the island. But centralized efforts, no matter how large and well coordinated, still leave gaps. In the future, when central relief activities come to an end and the media goes home, there will be a further need for direct philanthropic efforts to help ensure the continuity of progress. Acting DHS Secretary Elaine Duke, who has been under fire for her Thursday comments that the situation in Puerto Rico has made for a good news story, acknowledged Friday that the devastation on the island is clearly not satisfactory. Why it matters: Duke, representing the federal government, told Puerto Rican residents, "We're here, and have been here, and are helping." However, several people on the ground say the reality is very different. San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz told CNN Friday that the island is still very much in life-saving mode, and that people are in desperate need of more supplies. More preliminary data from Thomson Reuters: bigger the fall, the big global drop was in large transactions, with an 11.4% decrease in the aggregate value of deals worth $5 billion or more. When limited to deals of $10 billion or more, the fall was even steeper, to 17.7%. Sector-specific energy and power made up 15.2% of global deal value, followed by industrials 13.7% and real estate 12.2%. Energy and power also led the way through the first 9 months of 2016, but was tied last year at 14.6% market share with high-tech, which in 2017 is tied for fourth with financials' 9.9% market share. Biggest deal so far is Atlantia's $34.7 billion agreement to acquire Spanish toll road operator Abertis. That's followed by the anticipated U.S. aerospace and defense sector tie-up between United Technologies and Rockwell Collins. Private equity. The number of PE-backed buyouts was flat, but the value of those deals rose nearly 25% over 2016. Wall Street. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley retained their 12 punch in terms of both global and U.S. advisory work on M&A, although JP Morgan jumped to 3 in both league tables, displacing Citi for global fell to 4th and UBS for U.S. falling to 11. The details. Budget resolutions are the vehicle that allows the Senate to pass certain measures with a simple majority, rather than needing 60 votes. The Senate Budget Committee this morning released its proposed resolution for the 2018 fiscal year, and included instructions for up to $1.5 trillion in tax cuts, but not a healthcare overhaul. The budget would allow the Senate Finance Committee to make changes to the healthcare system, which could include some elements of the ACA. But the document doesn't mention the Senate Help Committee, which shares jurisdiction over the ACA and would likely need to be involved for a full-scale repeal effort. Catch up quick. After the Trump administration issued its new, country-specific travel ban last week, the Supreme Court announced it would no longer hear oral arguments, but would still accept written arguments. Before now, if the Supreme Court were to hear arguments on the travel ban in the future, it was likely that the question before the court would be whether the controversy is still live. This might make it live again. Trump's new order keeps Iran and Yemen under some restrictions.